Hi, and welcome to the 5th video in the Narcissistic Abuse Series. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the consequences or the effects of narcissistic abuse on the victim. And this video, in fact, is part 1. There will also be a part 2. Now, having described in quite a lot of detail how the narcissist behaves and what they do, a lot of the effects should start to make some sense. Now, the effects, the consequences of narcissistic abuse on victims, male or female, they tend to be mostly female, but they, of course, absolutely can be male. Men are also victims of narcissistic abuse of either men or women. The effects will vary from person to person, okay? There will be individual differences. It is very unlikely there will be absolutely no effects and no impact of narcissistic abuse on somebody. It's pretty close to impossible to have experienced narcissistic abuse and not have it affect you in some way. Things that can affect how serious it is how long you've been in a relationship or you've been with somebody where you've experienced narcissistic abuse. If it's a very long time, obviously the effects can be worse. How young you are at the time of narcissistic abuse. The younger you are, the worse it's going to be. How many different relationships you've had with a narcissist. If you've had a lot of narcissistic abuse from different people in your life, it's going to be quite difficult to deal with, and the effects are going to be quite substantial. Okay, so there are individual differences, but as I said, it's pretty close to impossible to spend any length of time in a fairly close relationship with a narcissist and not be affected in some ways. In this video, in part 1, I'm going to talk largely about medical. I'm going to talk about the mental health, the physical health, and I'm going to talk about the effects on cognitive thinking ability. Okay, so let's start off with mental health. First of all, what happens when somebody is constantly in contact with a narcissist, is in a relationship with a narcissist, is around the narcissist? Is narcissistic abuse is a stressor. Okay, narcissistic abuse, the individual feels like they are being attacked. Okay, they could be put down, they could be ridiculed, they could be lied to, they could be made to feel inferior, and they can even suffer verbal and physical abuse. So the victim, the person who's on the receiving end of the abuse, is literally going to go into a fight or flight stage. Their brain is going to see this as dangerous. They don't know what's going to happen. This is an unpredictable person. Narcissists are unpredictable. You're not going home to a safe environment, or if the narcissist is in the workplace, you're not going to a work situation that is safe. You are going to something that is unpredictable. You don't know how you might get attacked, what might be said to you, how you may be belittled. You don't even know if you're going to be physically attacked. So the brain automatically goes, oops, danger. It detects danger, it perceives danger, it expects that danger may happen, and so it goes into fight or flight, which means you start secreting stress hormones. If you are in a relationship and if you are often with a narcissist, say this is somebody you live with or somebody at home or even somebody at work, your brain literally is going to be in a permanent state of fight or flight. You are constantly going to be secreting the stress hormones. You are going to constantly feel like you are in danger. And as a result, a lot of the medical impact of narcissistic abuse is the same as if you are living in a world that is constantly in danger, because actually you are. You don't know what's going to happen to you. The narcissist will do whatever they want. Everything must be their way. And quite frankly, you don't really count for very much. Other than that, you are there to support them and make them feel good. Okay, so with that background, let's get on to some of the mental health issues. Clearly, one of the first signs or one of the first consequences of narcissistic abuse is post-traumatic stress disorder, which could also be complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And for the purpose of this, if you don't know the difference, just see it as a more serious form of post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, post-traumatic stress disorder is extremely uncomfortable. You feel constantly hyper alert, hyper vigilant. Of course you would be, because you never know when you might get attacked verbally or physically or in some other way. So post-traumatic stress disorder is not an uncommon effect of narcissistic abuse. Going together with this quite often is anxiety and depression. You can see exactly why anxiety would be common in people who've experienced narcissistic abuse. You never feel safe. You don't know what's going to happen to you. You're probably going to be belittled. The human brain would like to be loved and respected and accepted, and well, the narcissist is only going to like you if you're doing exactly what they want you to do at that precise moment. And given that we are not mind readers, it's not always possible to know what that is. So you are probably going to feel attacked verbally or physically or belittled in some way if you are in a relationship with a narcissist. Okay, so anxiety disorders are very common as a consequence of narcissistic abuse. Also, of course, is depression. Now, a lot of depression, and a lot of people think depression is just sadness, but depression is really more like a black hole. It's a hopelessness, and it's a helplessness, and it's a powerless. And it's very easy to see how that can be a consequence of narcissistic abuse, because the narcissist is making you helpless, is making you hopeless, is probably cutting off your friends and family you know, is possibly telling lies about you. You do feel powerless. So depression is also a very common consequence. Now, one of the effects of stress is that it tends to predispose us, or any mental or physical illnesses we predispose to, we are perhaps more likely to get under stressful situations. So if you have any mental illnesses, then it is quite possible, or you are predisposed to mental illnesses genetically or with a family history, then the stress experienced from the narcissistic abuse could very likely trigger these. Then we have the physical consequences. A lot of us know what these are. People who are suffering narcissistic abuse frequently don't sleep. They have sleep problems. They have nightmares. They have digestive problems. With stress, digestion is very often affected, and people either don't eat, they feel nauseous all the time. The immune system is compromised, so you may very well find you have a lot of colds and flu, or other illnesses that come along, and you might find yourself taking a lot of time off because of illnesses. And then, of course, skin problems can also be a result of this. Okay, so those are some of the physical consequences of narcissistic abuse. The final group that I want to look at is related to what we call cognitive, which is the way we think, the way our brain works. Now, because narcissistic abuse is going to lead to the person feeling very stressed, the higher functions in the brain, the parts of the brain in the prefrontal cortex, right at the top here, the most advanced functioning of the brain, is affected, and it's usually less effective because stress is keeping your energy, the glucose, the oxygen, the everything focused on the amygdala, which is in the limbic system. And in order to be able to think properly, to use your prefrontal cortex functions properly, that is to make good decisions, to be good at problem solving, to be focused, to be able to plan, you need to have everything else before it or below it, as we might call it, functioning well. So if you are in emotional turmoil, which means your amygdala will be going crazy, and that will happen if you are constantly in a fight or flight situation, You're going to battle with the higher executive functions. You're going to battle with decision making. You're going to battle with problem solving because your brain is so caught up with the emotions. And in fact, a lot of people who have anxiety disorders or who have PTSD, in fact, have an enlarged amygdala relative to other people because the trauma and the stress that is going on is just so overwhelming. So your decision making could be affected. Memory function is often affected. People who are highly stressed and traumatized often report forgetting things or their short-term memory is not very good. Concentrating is very difficult. And they also report feeling very confused. And confusion also can be a result of the narcissistic abuse. If you have somebody gaslighting you, you're saying to them, but you said this to me, and they're going, no, I didn't say this to you. You're making things up, etc. You are going to, it's just going to make your confusion worse. Same thing with decision making. Although it is affected by what's going on with the stress responses in the body, the narcissist makes the decisions. Everything's got to be their way. So you probably don't get to make any decisions if you're in a narcissistic relationship. And like everything, the more we use it, the better our brain gets at something. So if you don't make decisions, you eventually become less confident and less able to make very good decisions. Okay, so that's part one. The second part is going to be more about social and relational aspects, effects of how narcissistic abuse impacts people and what it does to their lives. Have a great week. Take care.